COVID-19 might be the best thing that has ever happened to public education. It's forced us to take a hard look at what's going well in our schools, what we could do better, and what things we should get rid of altogether. Today, I'm going to share with you a few ways this pandemic has already improved education. Now, last spring, most schools worldwide transitioned into some kind of virtual instruction. Then in the fall, some students stayed online while others moved to a hybrid model, and a few lucky students made it back into the traditional classroom. A lot has changed in the world in the last 12 months, and a lot has changed in the classroom. And those changes have brought to light some exciting possibilities for the future of education. But before we talk about the future, let's reflect on what got us here. March 13th, 2020, a year ago today, is the day that a lot of people remember. It's a day that a lot of things started shutting down. But it was the day that was circled on my calendar for many, many months. Now, part of the reason it was circled on my calendar is that was my spring break. I'm a school teacher, and I was excited for spring break. But unlike a lot of teachers who go to the beach or go to Disney World or something like that, I'd scheduled a bunch of projects for that week and some different speaking engagements. Early in the week, I was scheduled to speak at an education conference. And then later in the week, I'd fly to San Francisco to deliver my TEDx on my 100-pound weight loss journey and the impact of exercise on health and on learning and on productivity. Well, as we know, a lot of things started shutting down, and that included my TEDx. So I was devastated. I was so heartbroken. I'd been working on this speech for so many months, and I'd worked so hard towards it, only to have it canceled. But rather than focus on the problems, I decided to look for opportunities. So I picked up my phone and I started calling a bunch of local schools in the area where I was at for the conference. I asked them, would you be interested in having me come in for an impromptu assembly where I can share a version of my TEDx with your classrooms or your students? Well, I got a few enthusiastic yeses. So the next day, March 13th, 2020, I went to 2 schools and shared a version of my speech. I was so relieved to be able to share it. It wasn't on the red circle, but my idea was shared, and I was excited to be able to and hopefully inspire a few students and a few teachers. Well, that was a year ago today, and of course, the classroom and education has changed so much since then. Now, as a teacher, just like all other teachers, I quickly transitioned to teaching online. This was a challenge for me. I'd never done it before. So I had to figure out how to use a new content management system to deliver my content. I started using Zoom to check in with my students and with their parents. And I had to be really creative in thinking of different ways to engage my students in this new virtual world. It was really a challenge, but I did my best. Now, in addition to changing my instruction, my daily routine also changed. I started waking up at 4 o'clock each morning because I had to do all these new technology things I'd never done before. I had to set up the classroom and get discussion questions ready to go. I had to make sure that my instructional videos were filmed and uploaded. And I had to do all these things that I'd never done before. So I was up super early. Well, I do my normal virtual classroom for a while. And then after a few hours, I would put that aside so that I could support and tutor my own 4 children who were home learning virtually. And a lot of parents can relate to this, that it was a struggle to juggle our day jobs and supporting our kids who are now learning from home. Well, I would do that for a few hours. I'd work with my kids in the morning, and then I'd move back into my virtual classroom to answer questions from my students, to check in with them, maybe get a little bit of grading done, do the best I can. Now, by the end of each virtual day, I was totally, both physically and mentally exhausted. But I wasn't the only one. Right before the pandemic, a survey was done measuring the stress levels of different groups of people. And the group that is most stressed is teenagers. Now, this was before the pandemic, and what we find is not only was their stress rising year over year, but so was anxiety, depression, suicide, and at the same time, physical health was on the decline for students. Well, this is concerning for me as a teacher, but that was before the pandemic. Of course, since the pandemic, we've seen that this has only gotten worse for students. Of course, the students who have struggled the most during the pandemic were those students who are most vulnerable pre-pandemic. For these students, the challenges brought about by COVID-19 only exacerbated the challenges they were already facing. So for example, a student from an abusive household has only seen more abuse during the pandemic. A student from a low-income household has seen a widening achievement gap. And students who are in crisis have been cut off from school staff who normally would help them navigate the trauma in their lives and the challenges of being a student. But because we're not there with them physically, that's been hard to do during this pandemic. It's been so hard, and the outlook for our students right now is so bleak. Levels of anxiety, depression, suicide are up, as well as feelings of isolation. Meanwhile, physical, mental, and emotional health are down. It is a really difficult and trying time right now. Now, in a school setting, in a traditional school setting, when our students are stressed out, what we do is we grab them all together and we put them in a room and we bring in a speaker that will do an assembly and uplift them and motivate them and maybe talk about things like mindfulness or bullying or anxiety. And we'll have an assembly, which is a break from the day. Students love it, and it helps out. Well, of course, during this pandemic, getting together physically has not been an option. But as a school teacher, I wanted to know, how could I better support my students? So I started thinking about virtual solutions. Well, lucky for me, I know some really cool people who do some speaking. So I got back on the phone. And my first phone call went to my friend, Sage Brocklebake. Sage is an actor, best known for his role of Buzz McNabb on the TV show Psych. Sage is a great, wonderful human being. And when I told him about my idea to do a virtual assembly, he was all for it. So he got on a Zoom call with me and we recorded him sharing a message about being kind and not judging people, which was a perfect message for this pandemic. Well, I shared that video with my students, and then I got back on the phone call and I called up my friend Kyle Collinsworth, who's a professional basketball player. Kyle shared a message with my students about the importance of getting up and moving, even if you're learning at home in a virtual environment. And he talked about micro movements and how beneficial those could be. Well, my students responded so well to these assemblies that I doubled down and I started reaching out to more and more people. And pretty soon, Virtual School Assembly was founded. Virtual School Assembly brings together celebrities from Hollywood, and it brings professional athletes and Olympians, motivational speakers, and experts from around the world, and they've shared their messages with students. I saw that this was making a difference, not just for my classroom, but as I uploaded it to YouTube, it was making a difference in other classrooms. And I started hearing from people all around the world about how inspiring these messages were. So I decided to keep moving forward with it. So over my summer vacation, teachers don't really go on vacation, but over my summer, I doubled down and I reached out to over 10,000 different celebrities. I continued waking up at 4 o'clock each morning so I could connect with influencers, so I could make Zoom calls and record them, so I could edit the videos and upload them to the YouTube channel. And the result was, by the end of the summer, I had 150 assemblies ready to go to inspire, educate, and motivate students during this pandemic. Well, being part of Virtual School Assembly has been a real opportunity and a privilege for me. Not just because I feel like I'm doing good for students, but because I've been able to connect with other caring adults who are really looking to improve the situation for kids all around the world. It really has been an honor to connect with so many amazing people. And this has truly been one of the silver linings of this pandemic. I want to talk to you about 3 different silver linings that I've noticed already as we've gone into this more virtual or hybrid world. The first one is collaboration. Now, as with Virtual School Assembly, what we're seeing is I'm not the only teacher who cares about supporting their students. Teachers all around the world are creating new online resources, creating YouTube channels, building websites, and creating other online resources, not just to support their own students, but to support students everywhere. And this is something I wish we always had in education, but it's come about because of the pandemic, that teachers are sharing more, that we're creating resources that are helping other classrooms and other schools, other districts. So that's been an incredible silver lining that's come from this pandemic. A second silver lining is that teachers, parents, administrators, and even politicians have recognized that we don't need to put such a great emphasis on high stakes testing and grades. Instead, we're looking at the whole student. We're looking at what they actually need in the classroom. So in place of some of the core curriculum that we've seen in the past, a lot of that has been scaled back. And in its place, we're seeing more physical education, mental and emotional education, character education and leadership, financial education and technology education. These lost literacies have been so neglected up to this point. We've been stuck in the 1950s teaching in the same way, but now we're seeing these important subjects creeping back into the curriculum, and it's making such a difference for our students. So that's been such a wonderful silver lining. The third silver lining that we've seen is that parents and teachers, and really all caring adults, are more aware of the issues that are facing our kids. We're more aware that anxiety is at an all-time high and that depression is at an all-time high. Now, we haven't changed those numbers yet, but what has happened is that parents and teachers are more aware of these problems, and so they're taking preventative measures to make sure that they don't get worse. And this is a blessing for our students in the classroom. Well, if you are a parent or an educator and you're wondering what you can do to support students during this pandemic and moving forward, I have 3 recommendations for you. The first one is we need to take care of our teachers. Now, sadly, over 50% of all teachers quit within the first 5 years in the teaching profession. Now, that's a sad statistic, but it's especially shocking given that teachers don't become teachers on accident. Teachers become teachers after years of preparation, and most of them wanted to be teachers for many years. They wanted to make a difference in the lives of their students. Many of them feel that this is their life's mission. So why are so many teachers quitting? Well, it's because teachers are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. So we need to show appreciation for our teachers. Now, one of the things that I've seen over the pandemic is I've gotten a lot more thank you notes than ever before. I think when students transitioned home and parents had to be with their kids all day long, they recognized that, wow, this is really hard just to have 1 or 2 kids at home during the day. Imagine what it's like to have 25 or 30 all day long, every day. It is hard. And I think we're seeing that teachers are really valuable. So show appreciation for teachers. Now, schools can also support teachers and take care of teachers. 2 ways that my school has done this has made a really big difference in my life. The first thing that my school has done is created more teacher preparation days. Now, I know around the world, teacher preparation days are part of a normal teacher's life, but here in the United States, it's a rare commodity. And so one of the cool things during this pandemic is that we've been given more days where we can come in without students and just work on creating online resources, doing lesson plans, and even getting some grading done. I think it's assumed by many people that these are tasks that teachers just get done during the day. But the truth is, most teachers don't have time for that. And so they're doing that in unpaid time at night, on weekends, and over holidays. So having teacher preparation days has been a wonderful opportunity during this pandemic, and I hope it continues even after the pandemic. A second way that my school has supported me is giving teacher breaks. Again, teachers are with students all day long. We don't have coffee breaks. We don't even have lunch breaks in most cases, and we don't have bathroom breaks. What do I do if I need to use the bathroom? I don't. I hold it. I wait because I'm with my students all day long, every day. Well, my school recognized this year that that's a really challenging position to be in. And so I got an email a few months ago from an instructional coach that said, hey, I'd like to come in for 30 minutes to be with your students. And you can just take a break, not to go to a conference or to a meeting or to deal with angry parents or intervene with students, just to have a break for me. And I've never had this before. In my 20 years as a teacher, I've never had a break during the day. And so it was such a great opportunity. Well, this instructional coach, she could never have known that the day that I would have a break would be the day that I would find out that my father-in-law had contracted COVID, that he was being rushed to the hospital, to the intensive care unit. This instructional coach never could have known that my father-in-law would die 2 weeks later. What she knew is that teachers are stressed out too. Teachers need breaks. And what a blessing that was for me to have 30 minutes to process this news, to call my wife and have a good cry with her, and to collect myself before I went back into the classroom. Teachers need breaks. So my suggestion number one is let's take care of our teachers. Let's show appreciation. Let's give them opportunities to prepare for instruction and to take breaks from time to time. Now, my second suggestion is let's take care of our students. Now, there's two different ways we can do this. First, we're going to talk about the physical health of our students. We know that when students are active, that improves not just their physical health, but by increasing their heart rate, pumping blood throughout their body and getting more oxygen to their brain, that's actually increasing their focus so that they're learning better in the classroom. It's actually having an impact on their memory so they can retain information better. And it is providing a needed break from the rigors of the academic day. So let's get moving with our students. One way I've done this in the last year is every day, whether I'm at home with my own kids or virtually with my students, or now that I'm back in the classroom with my students, every day I take a few minutes to just get my boogie on. I put on a YouTube video and we watch someone dance on the screen, and my students mimic the dancer with me. We all are up out of our seats and we're dancing for 5 minutes. Now, it is a lot of fun, but it also has the benefit of getting us active so that our minds are more active. Now, you don't have to dance. If you want to do something else, there's lots of opportunities for physical breaks throughout the day. Sometimes I'll just set my stopwatch for 2 minutes and we'll do a jumping jack challenge or a push-up challenge. Other times we'll play games moving around the classroom like Heads Up, 7 Up, or Mannequin, or Four Corners. Now, those games aren't really strenuous, but it does give the students a chance to get up and moving, to recenter, to refocus, so that they can transition and move on to the next academic content. So one thing that both teachers and students need is to get moving. My next suggestion number 3, is let's be aware of our students' mental and emotional needs and take care of those instead of just focusing on grades and tests. Now, a lot of teachers are already doing this. They're checking in with their students, and it's so important to do that. How are you doing? What are you afraid of? What are you looking forward to? We need to be asking these questions. Now, a lot of teachers do that as part of the morning routine. They check in with the students at the beginning of the day. How was your weekend? How was your day? And they start the day that way, but that's not enough. We can check in with our students in the middle of the morning as part of our mid-morning routine, or maybe as part of our lunchtime routine, especially if you're having lunch with your students now like I am. Maybe it can be part of your afternoon routine. Whatever the case, we need to check in often with our students. And wherever possible, let's pull them aside individually to see how they're really doing. Not just how they're feeling outwardly, but what's really going on in their lives. We need to check in with our students so we can see those warning signs of anxiety and depression so that we can prevent those from getting worse. So let's check in early and often with our students. Well, it is a real privilege to be a teacher right now. While it is difficult, and this has been the most challenging year of my 20 years as a teacher, while it is a challenge, it's also a privilege. It's so nice to be able to see light bulbs go off for students, for them to get new ideas, for them to develop, to make friends and develop new skills and abilities. It's such an opportunity to help them create a foundation for lifelong learning. And what we're seeing is this pandemic has opened up new ways and new possibilities for us to support our students. I'm confident that if we take care of our teachers, if we really show them support, if we look at the physical needs of our students and the mental and emotional needs of our students, if we do those things, we can look back a few years from now and think to ourselves, COVID-19 and that global pandemic was one of the best things that has ever happened for public education. Thank you.